We have opened, for example, in Italy, several new showrooms that are actually our city stores, smaller stores, compared to the big hypermarket.
In a product space or in a space where people are historically used to going and touching and feeling and seeing the products.
We are leveraging AI to optimize the product description because we have also some products that are quite technical.
How does the rise of something like Temu affect you guys? How are you looking at them?
They don't have a certain type of closeness to the customers that we actually do have. And on the other hand, our approach is to more and more sell solutions. We don't want to sell the product itself anymore, but it's to really to sell an experience to the customer.
I'll be honest, I went in a bit skeptical into recording this episode, mainly because most traditional retailers anyway struggle to figure out omnichannel, and the DIY space is one where it's even harder to get it right. But I came away with a changed mind, fresh perspectives, and some really interesting insights, all thanks to a young and dynamic digital native whose passion for retail is infectious. Today, I'll be speaking to Marco Trada, the director of e-commerce for Leroy Merlin. All about the scale of e-commerce in their business, the ways in which stores and digital are collaborating to create a truly omnichannel experience, and the ongoing battle with Temu. All this and lots more coming right up. Good morning, Marco. Welcome to the Retail Spotlight. It's a sunny day here in Berlin. I hope in Milan too. And before we dive into the juicy details of e-com in the DIY world, I'd love to hear a bit from you. Tell the audience who you are, what you're up to, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, so very nice to meet you as well, and thanks for the invitation. So I'm Marco Trada. I'm currently e-commerce director for Leroy Merlin Italy, coming from a mix of experiences between tech and retail. And again, very, very happy to be here and share a bit of my story.
Awesome. Leroy Merlin, big name in Europe. Everyone who has anything to do with retail or DIY will be familiar with them. Can you tell us a bit about your journey going there? I know a little bit about the background from a family business coming into this tech world and through to Leroy Merlin. But if you could share a bit of light on that, and specifically what drew you towards Leroy Merlin and what drew you towards retail as a whole?
Sure. So first of all, I was actually born kind of in retail. My first experiences were in my family company, where I've worked for 5 years after university. Already during university, it's a retailer, as mentioned, that mainly sells products for the home improvement and construction sector across the Italian market, and it's part of quite a big purchasing group that actually resells product for construction or home improvement, across the Italian territory. And after this, actually, as I decided, to take a different direction in my career, I've done an MBA in France, in EDEC Business School. And then I moved to actually Paris to work for AkzoNobel. And then after that, I decided to completely change my professional, experience and background. And I took an opportunity in Microsoft in Italy. Over 6 years, I've worked as head of the D2C, the direct to consumer channel. So my team was responsible for, selling all of the products directly. So from Xbox to Surface products and to Offices and Office and the software products that Microsoft obviously sells. And then this last journey in Adeo Group, that it's actually the parent company of Leroy Merlin.
Awesome. And can you tell us a bit about what exactly you're doing there? So your title is Director of E-commerce. What does that mean?
My organization is responsible for all the online sales across all of the product categories that Leroy Merlin obviously resells. We go from the gardening to the bathroom to the flooring. So our objective is clearly to, from one point of view, to offer the best online experience to our customers and grow double digit the sales across all of the product categories. And then the other part of my team, it's actually responsible for streamlining all the operations, both obviously on site. So all the navigation, all the customer journey on the website, and as well also offline. So all the optimization of the fulfillment methods and all the supply chain, obviously, piece that it's quite important nowadays.
So it sounds like quite a diverse role, right? Because you're looking at very deep technical things around optimizing conversion in places, to very hands-on brick and mortar physical elements of how are we getting all of these goods out to people on time and how we're handling returns and all of that. That's really fascinating. The part I'm most curious about understanding more about is how are you actually going about doing online retail successfully in a product space or in a space where people are historically used to going and touching and feeling and seeing the products. Of course, that's true for all digital, all e-commerce things. But I think of DIY and also the buyers of DIY products to be people who are really very hands-on. So if you can shed some light on that, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, sure, and you are totally right. The opportunity in DIY, the online opportunity, obviously, it's huge. If we also look at the trends, actually, one of the industries that are expected to grow the most online in the next 5-10 years is actually DIY and the home improvement and furniture. But I totally agree with you. We come from an history where the sector used to be very traditional, and we have to be honest. Also, obviously, Adeo and Leroy Merlin, they base their success on the physical store experience. That's what the group has been doing for more than 100 years, actually, right now. But we actually started this omnichannel journey since a few years back. In Adeo and obviously in all the business units of the group. For us, first of all, the concept of omnichannel is really strong. It's really part of our new DNA or 2.0 DNA, let's call it like that. And one example is really first offer to the customers a pretty solid and 360 range of ways that the customer can actually buy a product or receive a product. For example, nowadays in Italy, first of all, we actually have a pretty big range of products that go from the first party products. We're talking about 150,000 products more or less that we resell directly. And then we also, launched quite recently the marketplace that obviously extended by quite a big amount of our range of product. And actually nowadays in Italy, the market, thanks to the marketplace, we actually increased our product catalog by more than 2 million references. So first of all, pretty big offering. But what I really like about the Adeo and the Leroy Merlin focus is really to think about ourselves as a platform and not anymore, as a company, a platform where for the customer can really, get what they want whenever they want through the channel they prefer. Nowadays, for example, in Italy, a customer can actually buy a product through home delivery, obviously, and this product can be delivered from our warehouses that are, in the Italian territory, but also a product can be delivered directly from a physical store. So we are actually using and evolving the physical store concept as a logistical hub that, can actually ship a product if it's not potentially, present in our warehouse, so that the customer can still receive this product. Or we actually also deliver products directly from the supplier through drop shipping when this product is actually not present either in the physical store or in the warehouse. And the same logic applies to our marketplace. We also have click and collect. So a customer that actually prefers or maybe lives nearby a physical store can also leverage our click and collect service for free. so they can just go and just reserve or order the product and pick it up in the physical store. So quite a big and strong range of ways a customer can really access to our products and services.
And does the whole thing also work this way for return? So you've done buy online, pick up in store. Can I return the same channels, the same ways?
Yes, definitely. So you can actually return the product, obviously online. I mean, using the online experience, let's say, but also you can actually return a product just by going to a physical store. So clearly, that's a very valid point. Our omnichannel strategy is not only in the first touch point, so thinking about the first touch point, but more and more, obviously, we want to offer a 360 omnichannel, obviously. Approach to the customer that also includes obviously returns.
That's great. The reason I asked this is also because I have a personal pain that I experienced. This was before COVID, so before a lot of retailers started taking omnichannel more seriously. We were renovating the kitchen, and I had ordered a bunch of tiles. It turns out it wasn't the right tile, or wasn't the one we wanted to use. Let's say, carry it in the train to the local store of that brand because I wanted to pick up a few other things. It wasn't light; it was a stack of tiles, right, for the backsplash. And walk in, and I'm told, no, this is ordered online. This has to be returned online. And I'm standing there with this, 15 kilos of tiles in my hands, thinking this could have gone a lot better because they sell the exact same tile in that store.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, just put it into the shelf. Just do this somehow. But obviously, I understand there's a certain back office to this. There's the order management, the ERP, and if those are not synced up and working, you're going to end up with that experience. And experience is one of those things. So I think what you're describing in terms of the experience, in terms of receiving, returning, purchasing, I'm seeing more and more retailers getting better at that. What you're describing is clearly like sort of the gold standard: pick up anywhere, order anywhere, return anywhere. When you have that figured out, when that's working well, what's next on the experience? So if I think of the experience of actually selecting the products, of actually, knowing that this is the right tile, if I go back to my example, what innovation do you see coming there? What are some things you have tried already? And where do you see maybe also the future if you think of things like AI, virtual reality, etc., playing a role? Because I think in your space, these are really exciting topics.
I totally agree with you, actually. And for me, for example, one of the, I would call them trends, even if it's not a trend anymore, but it's actually reality. Also for us, it's really personalization. As I was mentioning before, obviously, the pro of Leroy Merlin is that we have quite a, big product catalog, as I was mentioning, through, first party and third party. The downside of that is that it's not simple for a customer, especially online, to pick the right product, as you were mentioning. So I want a specific floor. How do I know that that's the right floor for me? So what we have been testing, and actually just recently was very nice to see it. Adeo got ranked in the top 5 retailers worldwide for the use of AI or investments in AI. So that already gives you a bit of an idea, where the company is going in terms of direction. But we have been already testing, for example, AI for to offer the right product recommendations to the customer, for example, online. And what's interesting is that we are not only using, the historical data or, the preferences online, but also the historical data and, the data points also from physical, customers that are going to the physical stores. So this is one, for example, of the, fields that where first of all, I think there's a huge, opportunity for DIY retailers, for Adeo, for Leroy Merlin, but I will say also for many other retailers in their fields. And for us, we were really able to collect some very interesting insights and to really increase the engagement and obviously also the conversion of the customer through offering more personalized experience in terms of product recommendations, for example. Another field where we are using AI is the product quality. So sorry, the PDP quality, the product page quality. So we are leveraging AI, for example, to optimize the product description, because as you can imagine, we have also some products that are quite technical, so it's not simple for a customer, obviously, to understand if the dimension is the right one, if the type of product is the right one, the resistance of the product is the right one. So to really leverage AI to improve our product descriptions on the website, as well as we're testing, for example, AI to improve some assets on the website, like for example the pictures of the products. It happens that sometimes, as you can imagine, we have quite a broad range of suppliers that obviously work with us, and not all of them sometimes share with us still in 2024, but it happens, qualitative assets, pictures,
Sure.
photos. And so we are actually testing AI also to when something like that happens, that we don't get the assets from the supplier, to kind of generate pictures using AI. So these are two fields where we are already working with AI. And then I will say there is a third one where, in my opinion, there can be a very, very big potential and opportunity, is to use AI in a predictive way. Clearly, if you think about our, again, to go back to Leroy Merlin, to our product range, we strongly rely and depend sometimes on seasonality, gardening. That's clearly, a big, actor in our, business. And clearly there are moments when gardening, makes more sense, and moments, if we think about, obviously, the cold Berlin winter, where probably nobody is gonna buy gardening products.
In Berlin, you only have 3 months to sell us gardening products. That's it.
So yeah, maybe in Southern Europe we are a bit luckier, so let's go for 5 months. But that also means to have the right stock at the right time of the products that you need to sell in that moment. And if you don't have it, probably the customer is gonna go and buy it somewhere else, because they need a swimming pool in that moment, or a tool for the gardening in that specific moment. And so to use AI in a more and more predictive way to reduce, for example, overstocks, or sometimes to stock outs, it's actually, in my opinion, a very big opportunity that is gonna optimize even more, for example, our product offering in as I said, in the right time at the right moment for the customer.
That makes a lot of sense. And you touched upon two things that I want to dig deeper into. One thing you mentioned is you're using both the in-store and the online data to improve recommendations and offers. How do you currently connect the in-store purchase and the online purchase, or the in-store customer and their online profile?
Yes, so nowadays we are leveraging quite a lot our loyalty program, because clearly that's I would say quite an efficient way to obviously always GDPR compliant and privacy compliant to collect data points from the customers. So that's the first channel that actually we are using to really observe, because what's super also interesting is to observe how the customer, for example, moves from one channel to the other. We did an analysis quite recently to really actually go deeper into this. And first of all, what we realized is that no big surprise, but I think it's interesting to really see it in practice and to collect some data points, is that the online channels, so the first party e-commerce products and the marketplace, are actually growing more and more in terms of new customers acquisition. So that's super interesting, first of all, because if we think about 5 years back, that was not the case. The physical stores were the engines, the drivers of new customers acquisition, while now the mix, it's actually moving more and more towards online. And then what's interesting is also to see how these customers, for example, from online, then they go and buy to the physical stores. And there are a lot of different aspects to really look at, but more and more actually the customer really is born online and then goes actually offline, or more and more the customer is actually acquired by the marketplace, if we think about the online channel only, and then shift to the first party actually products. So there's really this pure hardcore, I would call it, omni-channel experience that the customer is really going through.
That's very fascinating. And I can imagine a lot of those newer acquired customers that are coming in online first are probably the newer generations who maybe the first time they thought about doing a DIY project didn't even know that, oh, I can go to a DIY store and buy all these things. They saw a hack on TikTok, or they saw a video of, I don't know, convert your IKEA furniture into something different and go buy these 3 tools. Like, well, where do I go buy them? And you start Googling it and end up on an online channel, build that brand relationship. So that's a really interesting insight. Because I think, if I think back when a lot of retailers started doing e-com, many times e-com had less revenue than one of their stores, right?
Yeah.
And so it was also treated accordingly, that, okay, this is just like someone's fun project and we'll see where that goes, especially in what I like to think of as hardcore brick and mortar businesses, which DIY definitely falls under. So this is a very cool insight to now find that people are actually coming online first and then moving to the physical world. What's the split right now between online and offline in terms of revenues?
What's interesting and fascinating also, it's that still nowadays, when internally, especially people that have been working for Leroy Merlin for many, many years, they still think or compare the e-commerce revenue compared to a physical store. And so, they still say, okay, the e-commerce revenue equals, I make it up a number, 10 physical stores revenue. So just to give you the perspective of how, still internally, there is this cultural change that the company is going through to still take the physical store as a benchmark for the revenue. But yeah, the percentage of online obviously is growing, quite a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine double digits probably year on year, at least, right? And it's interesting because if you tie this fact, right, that the metric being used is still revenue, physical versus online, how would you say an ideal omni-channel business would need to be run? How do you take into account things like, look, online is actually driving acquisition, which physical stores aren't as much. There might even be a retention play. That's another topic that I want to dive into after this as well, because you spoke about, customers coming, not finding a product and going somewhere else. So that's churn, but how is online playing a role in retention? So there's all of these aspects that are not directly revenue related,
yes,
at the first glance, but in the end do hit the bottom line and the top line significantly. How does an organization move in the direction of taking that more into account?
Yeah, that's a very, very, very interesting question, actually, and very fascinating question. And it really goes back to the cultural piece. First of all, just a small parenthesis. Enjoy to see the different cultures of companies. If I think, for example, about my experience, the 3 big moments in my background, as I was mentioning before, were from the family business to Microsoft, so a very American style corporation, to Adeo, so more European style corporation with a different approach. And it's really, really interesting to see how the culture, it's different, but in some ways it's also similar. When I for example talk about Leroy Merlin or Adeo, I like to think it and describe it as a mix of my 2 previous experiences, because culturally speaking, Adeo is very entrepreneurial. So it's a very bottom up company. That's because that's the way the company was born. Actually, back in time, I was actually told that each store leader, store director was actually, the owner of their own strategy in each country. And so this, very entrepreneurial piece really connects back with my, family business, if I think about my background. And I still, kind of experience sometimes, obviously with a, huge corporation and completely different volumes, that really entrepreneurial aspect that obviously I experience in my family company. And on the other hand, obviously you also experience, the big multinational, approach in corporation, obviously, that Adeo and Leroy Merlin is, such as, the Microsoft experience. So just to give you a bit of, context, that it's really a very interesting piece, and for me, personal also to go through, these different cultural aspects of very different companies. But at the end, there's always some similarities. And to go back to your question, and that's why I mentioned culture, to really have that, mindset change.
Mm-hmm.
It really goes back to the culture. It really goes back to that piece. Business is business, but if the culture doesn't change, the company is not going to change. And so what we have been doing to really, and it's a, under construction, it's a work in progress, I will say, to really drive change, especially, my team, that it's clearly inside the company, one of the, I will call it innovative team compared, for example, to a physical store. It's really to try to, change the culture. And it requires a lot of patience sometimes, to be very honest with you, because all these data points that for us, for example, are maybe more, let's say, easy to understand, or we are more used to understand these data points, they really need to be explained and integrated in the overall, culture of the company. So this concept of new customers acquisition, this concept of customer retention, now I will say that we really successfully, integrated them in the way, for example, we look at the business. So every week, just to give you a very practical example, when the company looks at, the business trends, they really integrate this aspect of, okay, how many customers were acquired by the physical stores, and how many customers were acquired by the online channels, and how the customers are actually moving. So it's really integrated, but it took some time to really change a bit the culture, and to make it a solid part of the way we look at the business and our business rhythm, I would say.
Makes a lot of sense. One of the things we're trying to solve with Refive is to bring that ability even to measure things like how many people have we acquired through the physical stores, how many are coming back, how many are we retaining, to even bring that ability to stores, right? Because as you said, it's a historically different mindset. If you were born in the digital world, you've been thinking from day one about CAC, customer acquisition cost. You've been thinking of the lifetime value. You've been thinking of how do I retain these customers? And if you think of the physical store, it's always been about optimizing the layout, optimizing the merchandising, putting out the right local campaigns, etc. Location is what you hear. And no one has actually thought of, well, who's actually coming in here and how often are they coming in? Obviously, I'm exaggerating. People did think about that, but just not in the same way as you've thought about it in a digital channel pretty much since the dawn of digital. And one of the things I think will make, just to add a little bit of my own opinion in, omni-channel work even better for customers is for physical stores to work a bit more like online businesses, and online businesses, on the other hand, to work a bit more like physical stores, right? And one thing I often ask, people who are working on the e-com side of things is, how often do you actually engage with the physical stores? Is there some sort of approach you've taken to actually bring learnings in from there into the online world and vice versa? Or is this, are everyone sitting in their own silos and happily ever after at the moment?
Yeah, that's another very interesting question. And actually, we are more and more working with them for a couple of reasons. We leverage the physical stores as, logistic hubs. So clearly, it's important that, when for example, we have strong campaigns. Let's think about the easiest one, Black Friday campaign. Clearly, we need pre-work to make sure that, for example, the physical stores also have the right products, the stock, the operational capacity, to really deliver these, X number of orders that are expecting to be delivered, for example, during the Black Friday. So that's something that we had to do because clearly, that means offering an even better experience for our customers. But what obviously, we have been working on, and that's something that I always tell my team, because I will say it helps, interacting even more with the rest of the company is, we have an advantage. If you think about a physical store, let's think about how a physical store works. So there is a seller, there is, the chief of the, product category, caposettore, we call it in Italian. Then there is the store leader. Then there are the regional directors. And then there is the headquarters in Italy. So imagine how many steps it takes, for example, for a data point, to go from the bottom, to, the top of the pyramid. A super long time. So what I always tell my team in a very practical way, imagine the benefit, the advantage that you have to trigger conversations with the rest of the company. You have the data points live. You know when the customer arrived, what the customer have done on the website, what the customer has bought or potentially hasn't bought, if you analyze all the different KPIs on e-commerce. And so we are really, have been taking this approach to, I'm going to use a strong wording, but to sell these data points internally, since we are retailers, we always think about the business, so that, it helps and triggers new conversation that are benefiting, obviously, e-commerce, our business, to potentially, accelerate our strategy, but also it's going to benefiting, obviously, the company, because with these data points, can obviously leverage those also for the physical stores experience and strategy.
Very fascinating. I think essentially what you're saying is that by being able to give that real-time insight from the online world and making that more present at the top level of the business, you're essentially also helping the physical business, because those questions will start to get asked more also on the physical side, and that data will maybe be more visible, be more transparent over time. I think that's very interesting, because I often wonder, right, is how long does it actually take for these insights to trickle up, if that's the right word, or to roll up into the organization, and how quickly is the organization then able to react to make those changes on the floor? If I think of ecom, if you find by running a split test that blue button works better than a red button, to take a very simple example, you can change that within the next sprint or even the next day if you're really eager to change it. And the physical world, obviously, you're moving people, you're moving things, you're moving shelves and whatever else you have it. So what does that cycle actually end up looking like in the organizations where physical retail is such a big component?
Yeah. So, clearly it takes time, let's be very honest, but it's taking less and less time. Why? Because we built, obviously, processes and a certain rate of business so that, this continuity in sharing these data points is really becoming the new norm, the habit. So that really helps, because, maybe the first time you're going to say, yeah, the message is going to maybe arrive, yes and no. And then the more times actually you really share it, and you potentially also share, the impact that something that was done starting from the specific data point online, then that's when, it triggers like the idea or, the attention of, obviously, let's call them the physical store side of the company. So in my personal opinion, what works is really to define a specific rate of business so that it's something that it's, it keeps going on and on. And then it's really to also translate it in the language of the physical store, as I mentioned, side of the company, so that it's potentially easier, for them to translate it into practical actions. And also, what maybe an interesting example that also gives you the idea of how, as a group and as a company, we really believe in this approach of omnichannel and leveraging more and more online also for offline. It's this new project is going to be rolled out in the next months in Italy as the first business unit worldwide, that it's called ELO, Experience Like Online. So it's a project that basically is gonna, change the way sales advocates in the physical stores are gonna, sell products or give information to the customer. Are gonna basically use, a new platform that is gonna be exactly like the e-commerce. So it's gonna be exactly the same. So it means that they're going to use, for example, the same product descriptions, the same experience like of a product page that now you see on the e-commerce. There is going to be integration 360, obviously, of fulfillment methods, payment methods. So it's really a 360 approach that is going to start from ourselves first, and that is going to, as I mentioned, really merge the online and physical experience into one. So this really also gives you a bit of the idea of how strongly we believe in, a seamless experience for the customer, not only from a customer point of view, but also from an internal point of view and a sales advocate's point of view, if we think about the physical stores.
Very, very fascinating. And is that information, those PDPs, etc., provided to the sales associate, or can the customer also, in a self-service fashion, access them?
Both. So clearly the customer can still access them, but what's interesting is that, for example, the sales advocates is going to have the capability when the customer, for example, comes into a physical store, to access the login of the customer, obviously with approval of the customer, and, for example, see what the customer looked at online, or what the customer bought previously, or potentially what the customer put in the wish list. So that's really, to integrate, as I mentioned, the experience and to really kind of leverage all the data points in as one unique approach, so that the customer at the end, is gonna experience the same experience no matter where they are.
That's amazing. I really like this idea because if I think about the products that you sell, I mean, obviously they're simpler things, but a lot of the DIY products require some technical understanding, require some explanation. And if I'm sat there saying, no, I saw these, screws online and I can't find them in the store, I need to do this thing. It's this long screw that looks like this. And I'm standing there trying to explain that to a sales associate, which is a situation I've definitely been in myself. Just giving them that power to say, I can actually see what you looked at online. And it's not like I'm giving away some very personal information. It's stuff that I looked at on your website. To speed up and simplify that process, that's huge, because indirectly what you're doing is also educating the customer a lot better, who's not going to go in and just roughly describe their problem. The sales associate is going to give them something that they think is going to work, and maybe they come up with a solution, but actually they're understanding what I looked at versus what I ended up buying. What's the difference? And there's that training loop there that I think it's going to be a powerful experience. I'm pretty excited to try that myself if I can at some point. Very cool. And if I think of, obviously I'm using examples of lay people. I understand that in the DIY world, you probably have a mix of consumers who are what I would call maybe prosumers, or like small businesses, who are coming in on a very frequent basis. They are power users. And then you have people like me who, will do a weekend project every 6 months or something like that, right? Given that very diverse customer base, how do you, both online but also offline, then think about concepts like retention and churn? Like, am I churned if I didn't buy for 6 months, even though I'm still loyal to you? How do you go about this?
Yeah, so first of all, obviously we analyze the frequency of, of a customer, so many times they buy. If you think, for example, about, physical stores, on average, the frequency of a customer is that they buy, again, I'm talking overall, 3 times per year. So that's more or less the frequency of a customer for us. Clearly online, it's a bit different. It's a bit higher. And also what's interesting is that, for example, the average order value online actually on average, it's actually higher compared to the physical stores one. So that's already a quite interesting data point. And by, I mean, not a small percentage. So there's quite a strong difference between online and offline average order value. But yes, definitely you touched an interesting point, that it's actually the diversity of our customers. What we have done was also to kind of build some personas, some type of customers that represent our customer base, and also some personas that potentially are going to be the new buyers of Leroy Merlin. And clearly, to make it simple, like the big difference is between the customers that need just pure hardcore products, like the DIYer or the bricklayer, as we call them in Adeo, and the customer that we need more inspiration. So just to come and go inside, a physical stores or on the e-commerce, and potentially to just get inspired because maybe you're looking for a lamp or curtains or a carpet and so on. So clearly the experience actually is not the same one, both online and offline, if we think about these two different types of customers. And for example, what already gives you the idea of how we are evolving in terms of also this approach is that from a physical perspective, we have been testing new store concepts to really, potentially be even more top of mind for the customer that is more, the one that needs inspiration. So we have opened, for example, in Italy, several new showrooms that are actually our city stores, smaller stores that, compared to the big hypermarket that, we all know and we think about when we think of Leroy Merlin. These are smaller showrooms, really central, for example, in Milan or in Rome or in Florence or in the south of Italy. And they just cover a few of the product categories that we sell. For example, here in Milano, we just opened a very nice showroom that it's focused on bathroom products and flooring products. And the experience of these stores is completely different because it's way more premium. Obviously, also the showroom itself is a bit more premium compared to a physical store, and the service that the customer is gonna receive when entering these places is way more customized. So if we think about our customer base in a very simple way, not to make it complicated, but we really look at the customers in this dual way. The hardcore DIYer that needs certain type of services and products and experience, and the customer that needs more of inspiration and a certain type of service.
Very fascinating. And I think if I think of that second bucket, one thing that comes to mind for me, and I just have my most recent delivery box lying here on the table. How does the rise of something like Temu affect you guys? How are you looking at them? Because they're not just selling electronics. There's a fair range of DIY like, or the kind of products exactly that inspiration segment might be looking for. How are you perceiving that?
It's clearly quite an interesting, retail case. I would call it Temu. Obviously, we have been, monitoring as a Deo group, but also specifically in Leroy Merlin Italy. The last steps of Temu and what they've been, doing. And clearly, if you think, for example, just to give a bit of context, if we think about the top 10 e-commerce in Italy. Actually Temu in a very short period of time reached the top 10. So that already gives an idea, obviously, of how fast these people are growing. We are also there, so we are also in the top 10. But it's just a ranking, but it already gives the idea of the popularity that Temu is actually gaining in our markets. And not only in Italy, actually, I was discussing this with my colleagues in France and Spain, for example. They exactly see the same thing. So in the local rankings, just to have a benchmark, like Temu in a super short time, reached the top 10 positions in both France and Spain, that together with Italy are the largest markets for ADEO in Europe. But to go back to your question, clearly, they potentially can be, a strong competitor. It's true that they are selling many or several, I would say, product categories that we also sell. But that's why already before Temu, also, if thinking about Amazon or other, pure players, our strategy has been to really, on one side, to maximize our omni-channel opportunity that these players don't have. They don't have physical stores, they don't have showrooms, they don't have a certain type of closeness to the customers that we actually do have. So that's one piece of our strategy and direction. And on the other hand, obviously, our I would say approach is not only in the physical stores but also online. It is to more and more sell solutions. So we don't want to sell the product itself anymore, but it's to really to sell an experience to the customer, which also means services. If you think about Leroy Merlin, there are also many services that might come with the product or that the customer would expect, especially in Italy, where the customer is less of a DIYer compared, for example, to the French customer. Because in Italy, you will never find, as it happens, for example, in France, a customer that will go and, for example, install a kitchen by themselves. Never. Probably we are a bit spoiled on that, but in Italy, the habit is really to go to a showroom and to have someone that is gonna kind of give you a 360 service that goes from the product to the consultation, obviously, to the installation of the product. And that's why we are thinking more and more about selling a 360 solution to the customer that potentially these big players, at least for now, are not going to be able to offer to their customers.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and brings us back to the whole notion of why omni-channel in its true sense, with those physical stores and the online channel together, are what can really create that amazing customer experience. I might still go buy something small and commoditized or predictable on Temu or Amazon, but I'd include myself in that segment of customers who'd probably go to a DIY store and get informed about something before setting out on a bigger project, and not go buy those pieces online. Also, from a quality perspective, right? I think I'm still not personally convinced. There's a stamp of approval to the quality of what I would buy in my local known brand DIY store. Whereas with Temu, I'm always wondering, is this one going to be a good one, or is this going to be something that I throw away the next day?
I totally agree.
So as long as that delta can be maintained.
No, and actually, I think you touched also quite an important, piece of the ADEO, strategy, and Leroy Merlin strategy is also, the focus on sustainability. Sustainability in terms of, not only, climate sustainability, so the way we actually, take some actions to be, for example, net zero carbon, or to really respect the environment with our strong presence, if you think about, for example, the physical stores or the warehouses, but also is to more and more offer products and to sell products to the customers that are actually also sustainable by themselves, meaning that are made with, for example, recycle materials, or products that also have a positive impact in the home of the consumers. So, for example, products that allow you to save energy, or consume less water. So that's also quite an important piece of our mission. And actually, if you think about the overall Adeo mission, is really we make home a positive place to live. So this also goes back a bit to what you were mentioning about Temu, that sometimes you not to mention a cliche or to generalize, but sometimes you actually don't know like which products you're buying, or where these products are coming from, or how long they're going to last. And I think that's also something that more and more consumers and customers are actually paying attention to.
Absolutely. And I think the future of omnichannel and the future of ecom in this space seems to be, the more I hear about this from you, the more we've dived into these topics, seems to be quite bright. What I want to now do is switch away from the business and Leroy Merlin and Adeo, and come a bit more to you in our rapid fire round.
Sure.
So I'm just going to ask you a few questions very quickly. And I want you to answer with the first word or first phrase that comes to mind, or first answer that comes to mind. Just a bit of fun. So when you're ready, I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. Marco, what's the most unusual DIY project you've ever attempted?
So the most unusual DIY project I've ever attempted, actually, it's to really sell. To offer a 3D experience on certain products that are not very easily put in a 3D way on the e-commerce. So I think it was a failed test, but still we're working on that.
Failures is what we learn from. One book that changed your mind.
So I will say one of my favorite books is, I don't remember actually the title in English, my bad, but Il Conte di Monte Cristo by Dumas. So that's actually a book that I really enjoyed. It's a very interesting story. So I definitely recommend it.
Awesome. The last app you downloaded?
The last app I downloaded actually is the Leroy Merlin app because we launched a new version. So I just downloaded it to experience how the app is working.
One digital trend that you think is overhyped, and one digital trend that you think is not being spoken about but is going to change the world?
So I will say that overhyped right now, not because I don't think it's going to impact, but it's really artificial intelligence. I think, everyone now is talking about AI. In my personal opinion, experience, we are not there yet. When we need to talk about a trend, we talk about AI nowadays. It's true that we are really leveraging AI, but there's a lot, in my opinion, that still can be done to really find the right fit of AI within a company and a business. So that's what I will say. And a trend, in my opinion, that potentially could impact more is actually virtual reality, probably, and mixed reality. It's something that in our case, for example, we are really thinking to potentially exploit more in the future, because can have several benefits for the customers.
Awesome. I'm excited to see that. And then to close off, you're born in retail, you're living it, you're breathing it, and I can see the passion you have for it. What's a message you'd like to give to someone starting out in the world of retail?
The message that I will give is be flexible, because retail is really a very exciting world. What I love about retail is the speed of it. It's really fast. You deal with many things at the same time. You deal with a supplier, you deal with a customer, you deal with your operations, you deal with your supply, with the customer care. So it's really a place that is recommended for someone that likes this speed. But the downside is that potentially, if you really want to enjoy the journey, flexibility is something that it's needed, so that don't get stressed too much along the way.
Awesome. Wonderful words to end with. Don't get stressed along the way. I wish you a very stress-free and relaxing weekend coming up. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today and sharing a lot of very, very interesting insights. I walked away with a few ideas that I think I'll be thinking about over the next few days as well. The online lag experience being probably top of the list. And I wish you all the best in the rest of the journey. And thanks for joining today.
Thanks for me. It was a pleasure for me. So thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Retail Spotlight. Tell us how you found it, whether you're in the retail industry and want us to dive deeper into certain topics or invite certain guests, or if you're a passionate shopper enjoying a behind-the-scenes look, we want to hear from you. Hit us up with your comments, likes, and feedback. And if you know someone who loved this episode, please share it with them. Lastly, if you want to stay informed when we go next live with the next episode, make sure to hit the subscribe button. See you next time.